My name is Leah Berthaiome. I'm 32 years old, and on the day I married the man I love, my family was celebrating on a yacht in Greece. I didn't know that when I walked down the aisle, when everyone stood, when Ethan's eyes softened, when the music swelled like something out of a dream. For the first few minutes, everything felt perfect. Everything felt earned. I remember squeezing his hands and thinking, this is the moment I finally get to feel chosen. But when I glanced toward the three empty chairs reserved for my mother, my father, and my two younger sisters, the world tightened around my ribcage. I told myself traffic, or a delayed flight, or some absurd emergency my mom would dramatically exaggerate later. But the truth was already there, pulsing behind my ribs like a bruise that hadn't surfaced yet. They weren't coming. Not because of an emergency, not because they forgot the time, but because I'd said no, one time, to one thing. 2 months earlier, my sister Olivia demanded I buy her an $80,000 luxury SUV for her 18th birthday. Not asked, demanded. My parents backed her, of course, insisting that family means giving, and that because I was successful, it was my responsibility to give back. When I refused, when I dared to say she should earn her first car like everyone else, my mother went silent for weeks. My father sent one cold email with the subject line, "Family means sacrifice." My sisters sent passive-aggressive texts about how I didn't understand loyalty. I thought they'd cool off. I didn't think they'd commit to war. The wedding began without them. The father-daughter dance was skipped. I smiled through the ache while guests whispered and glanced toward the empty row. Ethan's extended family filled the room with warmth and laughter, but the question hovered, "Where are your parents, Leah?" I kept lying. "They're running late." Something came up. "I'm sure they'll call soon." But by 8 p.m., after too many polite smiles and too many eyes drifting toward the empty seats, I stepped outside into the courtyard where the string lights glowed like suspended stars. My notifications were blowing up. And then I saw it. A photo posted by my mother at 3:47 p.m., 15 minutes after the ceremony started. Her, on the deck of a white yacht off the coast of Santorini. A champagne flute lifted, her robe loose around her shoulders, my father behind her, stoic, sunglasses on, pretending he didn't see the camera. Olivia and Brinley posed next to a private chef plating grilled octopus. The caption read, "No disappointments, just real family #blessed #Greek cruise." Real family. The words stung so sharply I tasted metal in my mouth. I kept scrolling, even though I already knew it would hurt. More photos, more toasts, more videos of laughter and luxury. And then a clip of my father raising his glass while someone off-screen whispered, "To freedom." I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the screen, while the wind lifted the edges of my veil. I felt two things at once, a wound so deep it didn't bleed yet, and a clarity I hadn't had in years. At 11 p.m., when the last guest left and Ethan and I walked back to our hotel room, I felt hollow. We tried to enjoy room service fries on the balcony, but I kept replaying the photos, the captions, the toasts. Finally, Ethan put his hand over mine. "Leah, what do you want to do?" What did I want? I wanted to stop pretending. I wanted to stop carrying a family that had never carried me back. So while Ethan went to shower, I opened my laptop. The portal to HLM Estates, our family real estate development business, blinked open. A business they always called our legacy, but one funded almost entirely by me. I took out the ledgers, the contracts, the operating agreements, the trust documents my father always used to dangle like a leash. For years, my family contributed nothing. No capital, no sweat, no risk. But they treated every milestone like an entitlement, every property like something they deserved simply because we shared a last name. And I had let it happen. Because I was the eldest daughter, because I was the dependable one, because I'd always been groomed to clean their messes, soothe their egos, and fill their bank accounts. But now they'd toasted to my absence while I said vows without a mother or father in sight. I clicked the first form. Reassignment of property titles. Next, removal from all internal accounts and executive access. Then, updating the LLC articles of operation, stripping my parents and sisters from any stake or influence. Finally, withdrawal of my name from the family trust. It took hours, quiet, steady hours, the kind that change your life without theatrics or screaming. By 2 a.m., the final document was ready. A Declaration of Independence. I hovered over the submit button for a long moment. Not out of doubt, but because I realized something. This wasn't retaliation. It was release. I clicked submit. The screen flashed. Changes successfully filed. A strange calm washed over me. The calm of snapping a chain that had been cutting into your neck for years. I closed the laptop just as Ethan stepped out, hair damp, towel around his waist. "You okay?" he whispered. "No. Yes. Maybe." I leaned into him and said softly, "I'm done letting people hurt me because they think I won't walk away." I don't know if he understood then, but he held me anyway, and that was enough. Some people toast to freedom. I just claimed mine. When Ethan and I returned from our short honeymoon, I expected quiet, maybe lingering sadness, maybe the ache of knowing my family had chosen a champagne deck over my wedding vows. What I didn't expect was someone banging on my front door hard enough to rattle the frame. Ethan opened the bedroom door at the same time I stepped into the hallway. "Stay back," he said, but I was already moving. I knew that knock. It was the kind you hear when someone isn't there to talk. They're there to dominate. I opened the door. My father stood on the porch, his face blotchy, gripping a crumpled notice from our primary lender. He didn't greet me. He didn't acknowledge my wedding. He didn't ask how the honeymoon was. He just shoved the paper toward my chest. "Leah, what the hell is this?" he barked. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I simply turned, walked to the kitchen counter, and picked up the folder I'd prepared the night the documents were filed. He followed me in without being invited, just like always. When I handed him the folder, he flipped the first page, then the second. His expression shifted from anger to confusion, to something between disbelief and horror. The folder contained everything: the transfer of property titles, new LLC paperwork, the operating agreement, removing them from all business authority, my withdrawal documents from the trust, notices filed with the state, digital timestamps and confirmations. I let him reach the final page before I said a word. "You got what you toasted to," I said quietly. His jaw snapped tight. He looked like a man who believed he owned me, suddenly realizing the door he always held shut was now wide open and I was already walking out. He left without speaking, just slammed the door so violently the windows shook. The next morning, a lawyer called, one my parents used years ago. His tone was polite, but laced with condescension. "Leah, your parents are concerned about recent unilateral actions regarding shared holdings." "Nothing is shared," I corrected. "All filings are final and notarized." "You understand the family intended those assets for collective legacy." "I understand what the documents say," I replied, "and that's all that matters." I hung up. That was the moment everything shifted from disappointment to retaliation. The first shots in a family war. An email came that afternoon from my sister Brinley. "We need to talk. This doesn't feel fair." Brinley, who once posted a TikTok complaining that my birthday gift wasn't aesthetic enough. I didn't respond. The next day, Tessa, the oldest of the two, sent a group message including Ethan. "You've made a huge mistake, Leah. None of this belongs to you alone. Dad said you're acting out of jealousy." Jealousy? Of what? Of two sisters who lived off my financial stability their entire lives? Who never worked a day at HLM Estates yet accepted credit for milestones they never earned? I left the group chat. Then my mother called. The first time I'd heard her voice since the wedding. Not a single mention of the Greece cruise. Not a word about missing the ceremony. No apology. No hesitation. She launched into a rant the moment I said hello. "Families don't treat each other this way. The properties were meant for all of us. How could you cut us out of something meant for our future?" I kept my voice calm. "Who signed every loan, Mom? Who put up collateral? Who funded development, payroll, escrow? Me. Every dollar came from me." "That's not the point," she snapped. "The point is that family shares. Family gives." "Then why didn't any of you show up to the one day I needed you?" Silence. Then, "You're being dramatic." She hung up. And just like that, the mask dropped. The sabotage begins. 2 days later, the contractor on our biggest project called. "Hey, Leah, your sister Brinley's been contacting me directly. She said she's your partner and wants to renegotiate supplier deals. Is that true?" I felt something icy crawl down my spine. "No," I said. "She has zero authority. Block her. Permanently." Hours later, a property manager forwarded me an email from Tessa requesting expense reports and tenant information, claiming I was unreachable. It kept coming. Unauthorized calls, fake introductions, attempts to access internal accounts, requests filed with city inspectors using my business name. A friend in permitting called me personally. "Leah, your sister tried to file a compliance review using your credentials. It was sloppy, almost like a kid pretending to be corporate counsel. I thanked him. Then I changed every password, locked every system, and moved operations to a temporary office. Ethan kept asking if I was okay. I kept saying yes. I wasn't. This wasn't business. It was my family unraveling at the seams, showing their true faces now that their entitlement was cut off. Their wrath wasn't grief. It wasn't confusion. It was fury. Fury that I'd finally stopped playing the role they assigned me. The online strike. The next blow wasn't a phone call, an email, or a legal threat. It was a picture. Tessa posted an old childhood photo of the two of us sitting on a swing at the park. The caption read, "Some sisters don't break blood bonds over money. Some do." The comments were worse. Wow, Leah changed. She always was the cold one. Money really corrupts people. What kind of sister does that? Not a single person asked where they were during my wedding. Not a single person asked what happened first. That told me everything. 3 days later, an envelope arrived by certified mail. Thick, heavy, a law firm's seal pressed into the corner. A request for formal mediation. My parents and sisters were arguing that the family name, the brand of HLM Estates, the social perception of shared ownership, created an implied partnership, even without contracts, even without signatures, even without a single dollar from them. I read the document twice, not because I didn't understand it, but because I couldn't believe they were still doubling down. Still twisting, still reaching, still trying to claim what I built. I forwarded it to my attorney. No negotiations, I wrote, no compromise. And as I hit send, a realization settled quietly inside me. This wasn't about property or business or a trust. This was about control. They had lost theirs, and they wanted it back, no matter who they had to destroy to reclaim it. The mediation was held in a sterile conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city, a view meant to feel neutral, but the tension inside made the air feel claustrophobic. My parents sat together on one side of the table, posturing like a united front. My sisters flanked them, whispering occasionally, shooting me glances filled with feigned hurt, or maybe anticipation. I recognized that look. It was the same one they wore when they were kids, right before blaming me for something they broke. Their attorney, a thin man with a forced smile, began. "We believe there has been a misunderstanding in the handling of family assets." "There's no misunderstanding," I interrupted. Everything was filed legally and correctly. He cleared his throat, annoyed at being cut off. As we were saying, the use of the family name and shared branding over the years has created a de facto partnership, even without contractual documentation. I almost laughed. My father leaned forward, his voice tight. "You owe us, Leah, after everything we've built together." "Everything we built?" I looked him dead in the eyes. "What exactly have you built, Dad? Name one property you funded, one contractor you hired, one document you signed. Just one." His lips pressed into a thin, angry line. The truth was simple. HLM Estates existed because I built it, brick by metaphorical brick, through sleepless nights, risky loans, and relentless work they never lifted a finger for. The mediator suggested reconciliation options. Their attorney proposed a phased reintegration or profit-sharing arrangement. I said one word, no. My family's faces twisted immediately. My mother scoffed loudly. Brinley rolled her eyes. Tessa whispered, loud enough for me to hear, she always thought she was better than us. By the end of the meeting, it was clear. They weren't there to understand, or reconcile, or take responsibility. They simply wanted access. And when I refused to give it, their attorney abruptly changed tone, like a mask slipping. "If Ms. Berthiaume refuses mediation, we will explore claims of unjust enrichment and financial abandonment." Financial abandonment. As if I ever owed them a lifestyle. I stood, gathered my folder, and said, "We're done here." Their lawyer protested. My mother called out, "Don't you dare walk away from this family again." I paused, turned, and said, "I didn't walk away. You pushed me." Then I left. The pressure campaign. If mediation was the opening shot, the next days were an entire artillery barrage. City inspectors began randomly visiting our construction sites. A long-term investor said he'd received a strange message from my father implying I was under internal review. A potential buyer claimed Tessa contacted them to discuss leadership changes. Every attempt was amateurish but relentless. Every sabotage masked as concern. Every move a desperate grasp for leverage. My attorney worked overtime. Ethan worked even harder to keep me grounded. But the exhaustion was bone deep. Almost every night, I'd find myself replaying childhood memories, realizing they weren't warm nostalgia. They were warnings I never listened to. The favoritism, the subtle jabs, the entitlement. the conditional affection, the constant reminder that I owed them for being successful. I realized I wasn't losing a family. I was finally seeing one clearly. My mother's visit. The breaking point wasn't a lawsuit or sabotage or even their online smear campaign. It was my mother walking into my new office unannounced, like she still had a key. She glanced around the space and said, "Small. I expected something grander." A familiar burn flared in my chest. Without sitting, she asked, "What would it take to go back to how things were?" How things were, where I funded their vacations, paid their bills, bought their luxury items, saved them from their own failures, and received nothing but criticism, guilt, and dismissal in return? I met her gaze and said, "How things were was never okay." She blinked, offended. "Are you saying this is our fault?" "I'm saying you made your choices," I replied, "and now I'm making mine." "Don't you want to forgive us?" she pressed. "Are you sorry?" I asked. She didn't answer, so I did. "I didn't think so." She left angrily. And for the first time in my life, I didn't chase after her. The line they should never have crossed. I thought they'd calm down after that. I was wrong. One afternoon, I received a routine verification call from a bank I didn't recognize. They asked me to confirm a loan application for a luxury condo in Newport Beach under my name. My heart dropped. I requested the paperwork. When the PDF arrived, I stared at it in disbelief. My signature was on it. Twice. Not my handwriting, not even close, but clear enough that someone thought they could get away with it. My father. He had used an inactive shell LLC we'd never dissolved, forged my signatures, and attempted to secure a $1.2 million property loan. That was no longer family manipulation. That was felony fraud. I forwarded everything to my attorney and filed an official complaint with the bank and authorities. Within hours, my father left a rambling voicemail. "Leah, sweetheart, this is all a misunderstanding. Let's talk. Don't ruin the family over one mistake." Then an email. "We can fix this. How about a 10% revenue share? Let's just rebuild trust." 10%. As if my forgiveness could be bought at wholesale. I didn't respond. Minutes later, the family group chat lit up. "We're still your family, Leah. You're being cruel. Money changed you." Dad was desperate. Why can't you understand? I archived the chat, then blocked all 4 of them. Closure on my terms. I rebranded HLM Estates into a new firm, one without their initials, their fingerprints, or their history. Dropped old assets, sold the Santa Monica units, hired a security consultant, strengthened internal systems, cleaned the slate completely. My family, meanwhile, went silent. No more posts, no more accusations. Rumors said they quietly listed their house. Money was tight, connections drying up. One evening, as Ethan and I sat on our balcony with glasses of wine, he asked gently, "Do you think they'll try again?" I looked out at the skyline, my skyline, the one I built without them. "Maybe," I said. Then I smiled, small but sure. "But if they do, they'll be knocking on a door that doesn't exist anymore." Because some families toast to freedom. And some daughters quietly take theirs back.